Okay, you're looking here at chapter 18, the book of Matthew. Basically, where we started. Peter's very important question, the amazing answer Jesus has given. I'm going to go ahead and read this at the end, after we present this entire series here. But you should go ahead and read it on your own, and you can pause it here and read it as you like. Notice here in verse 6, he starts talking about someone having a millstone hung around their neck. And he's talking about this particular man or men of which these offenses are going to come by. Basically, he's revealing that this millstone is not coming from him, that it's coming, these offenses are coming, this attack is coming from man. And the particular man that it is would be represented by Ephraim. Ephraim itself is bringing this from the moon. And we can see this in Hosea. We can see this in Rev chapter 13, verse 13. Very important. You might not understand how clear that is now, but you will understand as we move forward. Verse 9, he starts talking about this one-eye parable. He speaks about this several times. And you should notice that in each instance, it's within the perspective of brotherhood. And think about the most famous one about one brother has a mote in his eye, the other brother has a beam in his eye, basically eye against eye. Well, that's brother, right? And what are we talking about here? We're talking about brotherhood. So most people, really the entirety of peoples do not understand what's being said here. But it's very important, because if we're talking about things that are current to our age, well, you got to think about it. This one eye symbolism is everywhere. It's even linked up to the tribe of Ephraim on the back of the $1 bill, connecting it back to Zechariah 11:17. Woe to the idle shepherd, his right eye shall be utterly darkened. Let's not forget the story of Horus, who the story isn't consistent. In one story, he's got his right eye taken out. Then the other story, he's got his left eye taken out. There's a reason for that. And the ability to understand it will come if you have patience and you can absorb all of this. So Jesus is going to basically reveal to us through the parable, and then the Spirit of truth is going to guide us to that understanding. Don't lose focus that on the very next line, he begins to start talking about what his chief mission and his chief delight is, and that is coming for and finding these lost sheep. And of course, on verse 13, very important. And if so be that he find it, verily I say unto you, he rejoices more of that sheep than of the 99 which went not astray. Incredible. Who was the 13th tribe of Israel? Well, that'd be Ephraim, who is leading all of these other tribes unto destruction. So Ephraim becomes the 13th tribe because Jacob himself in chapter 48 and 49 exalts him before Manasseh, the firstborn, bringing Ephraim from the 14th to the 13th. Ephraim is the 13th tribe of Israel. It fulfills Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. That's who's bringing the fire from the sky, a.k.a. the millstone. Jesus will let you see all that in a unique way that most people don't expect or even understand. So it's important. It's important to remember all of this began as he starts talking about this binding and loosing, and then it's paired with this understanding of brotherhood within the sealing period. Very important, because if you're really to understand the Spirit of truth, then you should realize that the Spirit of truth is for all. Our Father in paradise is the God of the entirety of creation. Jesus Christ is his manifested living word. The Spirit of truth is that manifested Spirit unto us, the manifested Spirit of Jesus Christ, which will lead us unto all truth, just as he's promised. I want to show you something here on chapter 7 of the book of Matthew. And remember the themes that we've been talking about so far, at least with hewn down trees. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bring forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Very important. Still in the book of Matthew, this is preceding everything that we read. He's still talking consistently about the same things, about these hewn down trees. He really puts this in perspective of the coming locust as these chief false prophets that he is warning everyone about, of which these represent those remnant of those trees where the roots have been left in the earth. That's really the fullness of what he's talking about here. So as he is describing the understanding of the army of Joel 2, to get you to recognize that they are wicked trees that have been hewn down, this is the root remainder, and do not trust them because they cannot bring forth good fruit. And this whole entire story will cause you to understand. But there's a twist here. There's a twist here in what the plan is that Jesus Christ has ultimately for these lost sheep. You know, he says he has many sheep that are not of this fold, meaning there are other sheep of other folds that exceed the kingdoms of men, of which these sons of God, which are not normal men's, would fit into. And of course, the infinite myriads of other inhabited worlds out there that are peopled with creations, created beings that are not exactly like mankind, but nonetheless are a part of his fold. So I'm going to show you here chapter 15. Okay, moving forward towards chapter 18, what we were originally looking at. Just one quick thing to see. Verses 13 and 14. Notice what he's saying. But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Each chapter through, he is continually describing the same thing, but in a different light, in a different way of understanding it. Let them alone. They be blind, leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Once again, pairing this thing with the sight. Okay? Should be coming together here. Notice here in verse 24, important to see, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now he identifies who these lost sheep are that he is so fervently seeking. And he's not seeking to destroy them. He's seeking to bring them back unto the fold. So the house of Israel is who? It is being led by Ephraim and the remainder of the fallen tribes. It's all there. It's all there. As Isaiah says, you know, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Isaiah obviously understood something very important. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read from chapter 13, which is the parable of the wheat and the tares, which is so important because he reveals that it's Satan who first seeks to sift the wheat, which means it is false Israel who is bringing their false remnant to the safe land of Shinar, aka the moon. Something's going to come up here that you might not understand yet until I go back to the book of Daniel, and I want you to see that this is the literal fulfillment that Jesus Christ offers in parable form of something in Daniel. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed, listen close, which indeed is the least of all seeds. But when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal. These numbers here are important with this understanding. Which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole was leavened. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. Notice that he's not keeping secrets, but he is revealing the secrets that have been kept from us since the very foundations of the world. And they're being revealed right now. So I would like you to notice here that this mustard seed starts out very insignificant, which indeed is the least of all seeds. So in comparison to the beginning, or the times most commonly referred to as Eden, we see that there is a lot of great trees, these great oaks of Bashan, the great cedars, and so forth. But we see that this mustard seed isn't necessarily a tree, it's an herb that's very insignificant, but it will grow unto a mighty tree eventually. So understand that this is not the tree that was established in symbolism with Nebuchadnezzar. But we will see that Nebuchadnezzar himself, that mighty tree, is going to come back to rest under this original symbolism of the kingdom of God, this mustard seed. And that's what you're going to understand when we go to Daniel. And keep in mind, we're going to get closer to our understanding of what this brotherhood is all about. Very important. This is chapter 4. Before we begin, I want you to notice the very beginning of line 32, and they shall drive thee from men. That's just not exclusive here of this ancient mighty Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. The Bible speaks about it in perspective of ancient Egyptian pharaohs, even the ancient Danites, one in particular, one very famous Danite by the name of Samson. Same thing talked about with these ancient Egyptian pharaohs. And I emphasize ancient. And then, of course, there's a story in Genesis where we're going to see the same thing about a group of 2 very peculiar brothers. I'd like you to look here at verse 34. I stopped reading previously at verse 33, but 34 is going to open up the fulfillment of the parable understanding that I just gave you from chapter 13 of the book of Matthew. And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest thou? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom mine honor and my brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and my excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and whose ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. No longer is he honoring the king of earth, the prince of this world, Enki, the Nahesh, the serpent. Now we see that after this period of sealing, which I told you has been done in perspective of not only our mercy towards us, but also a mercy towards them. We see that at least in the perspective here, as the prophet has represented this vision of Nebuchadnezzar himself in the days after the sealing, the ultimate undo of the sealing, as we see what Jesus said, what was loosed What was loosed also on earth will also be loosed in heaven ultimately. And once they are finally loosed from this suspension period, we see that the perfection plan of Jesus Christ is to not lose a single one. He's already established that all flesh is his, all souls are his, and he's not going to lose a single one. And all of this is a fulfillment of exactly what he's saying. And the key to understanding all this is to understanding this very unique perspective of brotherhood. And notice that Nebuchadnezzar is representing himself as that prideful one that has been abased. And this was by order and decree of the Most Highs, who has ordered this kingdom destroyed from off the face of the earth, and then to be confined to this inner earth location, both physically and spiritually. But the key to see here is that the prophet that is citing here in Daniel is fulfilling the vision of the fulfillment of this parable here, which describes this mustard seed. And it's exactly what it's telling you. And you're going to see more. You'll see more here as we go forward. It was chapter 13. I just want to show it to you briefly before we move forward. The emphasis, I said, the kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed. In the beginning, this kingdom of heaven was very insignificant at this time. There was these mighty oaks, these mighty cedars that of course had rebelled and had become fallen. They were the great and the mighty of those times. And then this very insignificant mustard seed was just waiting to establish itself by faith in the hearts of men who could hear the good news. And as we see that the perfect plan of Jesus Christ is for even these ancient mighty ones, these ancient mighty trees who have been hewn down to eventually come and rest, these birds of heaven, just like they were described within the book of Daniel, and even in the Sumerian, the descent of Ishtar, as it describes Nergal. These ancient gods, like the Danites, as they descended into the earth, they were considered these birds of heaven as well. It's the very same thing. Is not the tribe of Dan considered one of the lost houses of Israel, one of the lost 10 tribes of Israel? Yes, it is. Are they not the lost sheep that Jesus Christ is speaking when he specifically says that he has come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and then orders and ordains the disciples and prophets to do the same? Yeah. Exactly. We must realize the infinite mercy, the infinite forgiveness, the infinite love of the Creator. He is no respecter of persons. He loves all the same. He is not just seeking to reach those as they are today. He can see them as they will be in the eternity ahead. And he doesn't see these fallen tribes for the iniquity that they have committed now. He sees them for the goodness that they can bring about if they would just learn from the iniquities that they've committed. And then they would have the experience of understanding the actuality of the truth by living it, and experiences the repercussions of going against it. Therefore, they're that much less likely to rebel in the future, because now they have been battle hardened by suffering the repercussions of their own rebellion. That's the wisdom of the Father. And that's how things are brought into perfection, even these fallen ones. Now, when we talk about these high spirit sons, Lucifer, Satan, and the devil, they have already consistently rebelled within this sealing period of themselves. They have rejected, they have already come from this spiritual glory. They have already coming from knowing the Spirit of truth, Jesus Christ, and all his glory as the creator of this universe, and even the creator of themselves. They've come from that glory. They've seen it. They still reject it. They still reject it because of their pride, because of their greed, in their foolishness for not understanding the plan and the wisdom of the Father for them in eternity, they became impatient and they sought to get something now, what was really going to be added unto them in the eternities ahead. And it's a lesson for all of us. Those that are able to make it from this realize that's friction, and that friction can refine you and smooth you. You're basically like a rough piece of organic lumber that the universe has set up as a mighty tool to refine those that are able to travel the correct direction of grain against its friction. This friction will bring you to a state of a smoother being at each stage of progress traversed, bringing you ever closer to that perfection, that refinement of a figured being that is reflective of even the same type of figure that can be brought out of a rough stock of lumber in the correct craftsman hand that has the knowledge to refine it. Understand that. Jesus Christ is that chief woodworker that can refine you against the universal friction of his own creation if you just seek to travel the correct direction along the path. I'd like to now get you to focus here what we were looking at verse 32. And they shall drive thee from men. Now, before I show you this in the other places in the Bible, I want to show you how this goes back to the very beginning and links up to this brotherhood. And I want you to see something about the story of these two brothers that contains the exact same thing concerning the answer that Jesus Christ gave concerning Peter's question about brothers sinning against us. And there's the 70 and sevenfold. But unfortunately, my friends, here in Genesis, it is being rearranged from their perspective to reflect this vengeance here, vengeance sevenfold. All right, and this vengeance is being taken on Cain's behalf, the murderer. Well, that's the second cup. That's Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. And to understand that further, we'd have to go to the book of Judges, chapter 14 and chapter 15, as it talks about Samson and reveals something in a very particular riddle in chapter 14, verse 14, about this vengeance that's going to be taken from their perspective. But from Jesus' perspective, it's going to be mercy. But nonetheless, he recognizes that they will initially bring about their vengeance. But something within his plan will bring this all to perfection. And I'd like to remind you where he talks about that he will shorten these days of the tribulation, that those days are going to be shortened. And they're going to be shortened for everybody's benefit. And I don't understand the fullness of that mystery, but I can definitely show you that I understand this here. So now, here's the verse that pairs up amazingly with these ancient, mighty, fallen ones. Okay? Something that is not of the seed of mankind, that has been added unto the seed of mankind. And we're going to see that Cain himself has those same hallmarks. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. So this vengeance sevenfold that's coming at the end times of this judgment from their perspective is going to be taken on Cain's behalf, the murderer. Which links us up to what Jesus Christ talks about, their father, the murderer, the devil, which will then link us up to those specific scriptures in Hosea that describe that Ephraim shall bring his children to the murderer. It says, As I saw Tyrus Ephraim shall be planted in a pleasant place, and he shall bring his children to the murderer. I think that's chapter 9, verse 13, not sure, book of Hosea. The important thing to understand is what Tyrus really means. Tyrus is going to go back to Nergal. That's right. As I saw Tyrus, Ephraim shall be planted in a pleasant place. Well, evidently, this Tyrus, as it links up to this description of Nergal, aka the Danites, aka the locust, we see that they're also planted in a pleasant place. And that would be that Irakala, that great city. And then we see that Ephraim, the pleasant place for him, will be the two pasture land, the second portion of it, the moon, Shinar. So Cain has an incredible connection as being a part of this parable of brotherhood, a part of this parable of a brotherhood of darkened eyes or singular eyes, of which we see that symbolism is alive and well today, but being presented to you in the wrong perspective. We see that the whole entire thing about the sealing begins with this understanding of this initial peculiar brother, Cain, being the one initially sealed. So I ask you, is Cain one of these ancient mighty ones who is somehow connected to this land of Nod, aka the Nodites, where he goes and takes a wife? How can there be a wife there if by the traditional interpretation that you've been given, and so many people want you to believe, that at this time on the earth, the only three people on it, because one of them was just murdered, is Adam, Eve, and Cain? How does this wife get there? Because there is an entire population of people on the world even before the Garden of Eden. And you can understand that by reading some particular parables from Jesus Christ. And I will just prime you up for what we will talk about when I come back, and you will see it's in the exact same perspective of what we have already shown thus far. We're going to turn back to chapter 18 of the book of Matthew, where he gives the answer. Now you understand where it's coming from. And then look what he starts talking about here. Have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? He's talking about a beginning which exceeds the Garden of Eden event. And we can prove that. And we can do it with the Bible. He's talking a beginning that happens in line 1. After line 2, there's a judgment. There's a judgment. And to understand that further, we've got a lot more to talk about, no doubt. Is iron not hard? Are we not talking about the influence of these ones that want you to believe they're from Orion, but are really connected to the spiritual understanding of these ancient mighty iron ones, these iron rods? Yeah, we are. He saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. What beginning are we talking about? We're going to find out. What hardness of somebody's heart could we be talking about that's being learnt from Moses, or at least what Moses was influenced? Yep, those mighty ones, those men of iron. I'll be back.